So welcome everyone to the online sessions for 2025 Taipei Art Festival. And this year we had the themes really in hyper reality. And under these themes that in September, we will promote 8 shows in totals. And they will be happening from September 11th to September 28th. And today we'd like to talk about one of them, which will be showing in not September 12th to September 13th. It's called Angela, a Strange Loop. And in today's sessions, we will have a conversation with our director, Susanne Kennedy from Berlin. And later on, that we will also have simultaneous interpretations available in Chinese. So if you would like to listen to the Chinese interpretations, you may now switch to the Chinese channel. And I think without further ado, let's welcome our director, Susanne Kennedy from Berlin. Hi, Susanne.
Hi, and thank you very much for this. Looking forward to it.
Thank you for spending some time with us today. And many people are looking forward to this new show, Angela, a Strange Loop. Can you first talk to us about the inspiration behind this piece? Is there any incidents or any encounters or any experience that inspire you to create this piece?
I think I've lived with Angela for a long time, actually. I have created pieces before that had characters in it that were called Angelina, Angel. I made a piece at the Volksbühne in Berlin, the theater, that was called Women in Trouble. So I kind of circled around this character for a while, and I really felt during the pandemic I wanted to really focus on this woman in her 4 rooms. And I followed a few influencers online, on Instagram, YouTube channels, and suddenly she came into being, I would say, but more like as if in a dream or a kind of nightmarish situation. Also, this enclosed state of being that we all had to go through during the pandemic made her come out, I would say. And then I just wrote bits and pieces, and I found myself more and more drawn into her life, and scenes started to come from that.
It's very surprising to hear that Angela or Angelina have actually appeared across different works. Does this character always have the same profile, or is it always different from show to show? And are there any similarities or commonalities between different characters names Angela or Angelina?
Well, they're all women in trouble, I would say. So the title of that piece that I made 2018 already reflected this kind of, I would say, female suffering. So they're all different people, but the kind of angel figure that is part of all their names is as if there is a suffering on stage that we watch. And the question is always, can Angela transform into something else? Can she transform her own suffering? Can she go through a kind of inner evolution, I would say?
So this time Angela is in a strange loop. So I'm curious about how do you bring the audience into this loop, and what do you expect them to see in this interesting or strange loop?
Yes, I hope that the audience will experience this piece as a kind of dream, a fever dream, like I already said, because the logic is also something that is similar to a dream. And when we are in this dream that we have at night, everything seems logical. Everything seems just, you don't pose any questions. It's only when you wake up that you're like, this is so strange. What did I dream about? This was so absurd. But in the moment that you're dreaming it, it's very real and very, normal to you. And I hope that the audience will be drawn into this kind of feverish state of being that Angela And I would say it's not such a, when I say fever, I think it's a kind of cold fever, because the room that she's in has a kind of cold feeling to it. So it's not something that burns hot, but underneath the cold surface, there is a fire. I would say it's a kind of inflammation that is very much part of our time and our bodies. Angela is also someone who's chronically ill, and she talks about it online. She has followers. She talks to them about her diet, her sleep, how she's feeling today. And in a way, her illness, her inflammation is connected to a state of being that seems to be the world at this point.
So this time in this show, the Angela is a influencers. When you did a study for this piece, did you talk to any influencers, or do you have any friends around you that are influencers online or actively across different parts?
I don't really have direct contact to people who do it. I just follow them like everybody else. You know, I have my people that I go to every day. And it's so strange that you have the feeling as if you know their lives, as if you know them personally, as if you're friends with them. You know intimate details about their lives, about their health, about their relationships. And they come so close to you at home, on your phone, in your hand. You don't really have any exchange with them, really. I mean, if you would start writing to them, I guess it could be possible. But you feel like they're close friends. And so I thought, what would it be like to put someone like that on stage and have her talk to us as if she's this influencer we go to every day. And it's a very strange and fascinating phenomenon, I think. And I'm just like everybody else. I also have these people that I follow and that influence me, I guess. Yeah.
I think that's very interesting and very contemporary that we have this kind of seemingly intimate relationship with those people we don't know, but we actually see them every single day online. So I'm curious that typically in theaters, that audience tend to be passive. They just receive the theater and then consume what's in front of them on stage. This time, do you imagine the audience to be a different roles? Do you expect them to actively engage, or what kind of relationship do you expect between the audience and performers?
Well, I hope that it's always an active role that the audience has, even if they stay in their seat and they don't. I mean, we've made other pieces where people get up and come on stage and walk around. Here with Angela, it's not the case, but I hope it's just as immersive and as active in their participation. But of course, it happens inside. It's not something that you can see from the outside. So I hope very much that they're drawn in to something, a kind of mental state, an emotional state, and also a thinking state that puts them, for the time being of the piece, in a different space of perception, I would say, that they discover something maybe also about themselves that they have not discovered before. I always like it when the audience doesn't know exactly how to perceive it, that they cannot trust their own perception sometimes, even, especially with the playback that we use, so that all the voices are pre-recorded and then the actors on stage lip sync. There appears a certain kind of gap between the voice and the body, and also the room where it was recorded in, the studio, and the room we're in real time. There's a kind of void, a gap, that your perception actually notices it, but your brain immediately overrides it. So you make it fit again, but then something lingers underneath, and this feeling I like very much, that there's a kind of disconnect going on, and you usually bridge it immediately. but there's something that stays with you, a kind of uncanny feeling, I think. And this uncanny feeling can give us new ways of perceiving, of thinking about things. So we have to kind of, not open the door, put our thoughts inside and close it again, but something stays ruminating within you. That I like very much.
I definitely feel that uncanny feelings that when I saw the clips from the show. So things to talk about these presentations. You mentioned this is a pre-recorded audios and then the actors on stage lip sync to it. How did you come up with this kind of presentation?
I once worked with an actress who had a very specific way of, I would say, talking in general, not just on stage, but the way she talked. It was as if she would speak the words and hold them in front of her as if they were a kind of strange thing to come out of her mouth. That sounds very strange indeed, but that was the way she talks. And I was still working with actors talking themselves on stage. And I always used her as an example, and I tried to describe her way of speaking, because also here something happened, that the words were floating in space before the content really got to me, I think. And there was this kind of strange in-betweenness. So I worked with actors very much on a way of speaking. And then once we did a recording and used it for a short moment in the piece, and I thought, oh wow, this works really well. Maybe we should do a whole piece like this. And then we did. And in the beginning I thought, can I even do this? Is this okay? Is this allowed? Because we all have these rules in our head that we think this is theater, this is, allowed. And I had to kind of override this initial fear, I guess it also was. And when I did it, I never went back, because it opened so much possibilities for me that I could not have accessed without it before.
Yeah, I certainly like how you break the rules and then create this kind of surprising effect on us and on the audience. This show has been touring around in different places. And do you remember any kind of viewers and audience feedback that was memorable? And did you adjust or modify because of it, of the performance, or any aspects of the show has been influenced by these viewers' feedback?
Well, actually, I'm someone who doesn't work on the show anymore once it's had its premiere. For me, it's very good to let it go, that I don't continue to work and put my influence on it, but like trust it to do its thing and to go on tour. And of course it changes because the actors, change. They change, how they look change, how they sometimes do little movements. It changes. It doesn't stay the same. But I do not actually work on it anymore. And I know there are different directors who continue to do that. And one reaction I got, I think it was in Vienna, that a young woman came to me and she said, this piece has really relieved me, because it's such a nightmare, and now I don't have to dream that nightmare anymore, which I was kind of struck by, because I thought, oh, but now what? She thanked me for it, but I didn't really know how to take it, which I like very much. If you don't, you don't know how to interpret it immediately. But it also made me think, how much do you create a feeling for the audience that sometimes hurts, that is not always comfortable, that can be very uncomfortable, that you create nightmares in a way. But then how do you send people home? Is there some kind of hope that in the end, that there is a kind of transformation happening, that there is something you can take away from it? That's something I'm very busy with. And I don't, because I'm of course I'm not something I'm going to create something that has a kind of, clear, happy ending in that sense. But then I sometimes think, why not? Why shouldn't I do that? So it's also something that I think about during my preparations for new pieces. What's the message that I want to send? And of course, the message is very complex because life is complex and people are complex. But I used to be much, much more dark when I was younger. I showed characters on stage that were only trapped, that would never get out, that they were in a kind of purgatory, and that's how I liked it. But I've gotten older. I've had a child, and you also think, okay, is this how I want to portray the world and life? And no, I don't. But I still very much like to go into these abysses at the same time. So yeah, it's a kind of strange balance.
True, true. And I think that, yes, when you have a child and you see the world differently and start to think about how we like to see the world in the ways that's showing to the next generation, maybe. Different directors have different approach when they build new pieces. I'm curious about how do you prepare yourself to build new pieces? Do you collect materials or do you talk to actors? How do you start this preparation, for example, for Angela in The Strange Loop?
Yeah, so basically I sit here. This is the place where I work, and I'm very much by myself for a long period of time. Of course, I talk to Markus Segg, my partner who works with me, but he has his studio somewhere else, so we don't sit together and work on it. And I collect bits and pieces from everywhere. Just what I hear people saying on the street, like, quotes from the influencers I follow, but then the books I read. I put it all into different documents, and then I prepare for a long time. I would say at least a year, if not two, for a show. But it all happens with preparation simultaneously for other like this opera I'm preparing now, Parsifal by Wagner, is at least 2 years. So it has influenced other pieces that I'm preparing. But it's a lot of reading, I would say, but a lot just also being on the internet like we all are. And I like very much this idea of the hyperlink dramaturgy, the idea that you click on a link and you go through a window and you arrive somewhere else, and it leads you through a kind of strange time and space warp through links that you can climb through and arrive somewhere else. And I like to use that for my texts, actually, and also how you change from one moment to the next, and you can create kind of juxtapositions that open new rooms, inner states, I would say. And then we go to the studio to record the voices. I have a script, we record the voices, and then we arrive on the rehearsal stage, and the actors start with the voices and trying to find within their own bodies, where can I locate this voice? How does this voice move? What kind of gestures go with it, and usually how we record the voices is that the people come who are often not actors. Some are, but just lay people who are interested in reading the voices, and then they read their parts, and often they don't know what they react to, which also creates a kind of strange disconnect. And then we sample it back together and create a kind of new composition that we use for the rehearsals.
Since you talk about the actors, I'm curious about the casting process. In this cast this time, are these actors you work with for a long time in different shows, or these are all new actors to you?
I've worked with a few of them several times. I don't think, Taryn, I worked with her no, because we did Einstein. I'm trying to think now. So I've had experience working with them on different shows, some for a longer time, some shorter, and they're actually all dancers. So they're not actors usually. One woman who plays the mother, Kate, she's become more of an actor now, but she used to dance with William Forsythe. So they're all dancers, and that is something I like very much because, of course, you can work with the body in a different way, more intense, I would say, than with actors, and dancers have a feeling even more than actors for the space. So I've come to realize that this works very well with my kind of work. But that's quite something quite recent that I've discovered in the past years, that this is a good way of working for me.
Yeah, I think that's by the clips that I have seen that yes, they do have used their bodies in a different way that we would expect from actors. So it's really, really great to know that they are actually dancers, and that explains something sometimes of the scenes that I have seen. In our previous discussion with Marcus, we actually asked him about his relationship with technologies. I want to ask the question to you as well. What is your personal relationship with technologies? Are you distant from it, or are you highly engaged with it? Because this times in this show, we do talk about internet and online influencers and technologies, and sometimes in the futures we'll use a lot of AI probably for artificial intelligence. What is your current relationship with technology?
I think it's just like most people. I use it a lot, and it, of course, at the same time, you think, okay, am I using it or is it using me? So there's always this kind of reflection going on. How far am I slave to it by now, or am I still using it to be creative? And that for me is always the point where I think I'm trying to test it for me is am I still using it in a way that makes me still feel engaged, creative, inspired, or of course there are moments like we all have when we think I'm being used by it because I don't know how to work with it creatively. So that's always the I think the kind of balance you have to find. And I'm in a way, very positive. Here in Germany, there's a lot of people very scared of AI, and which I can also understand because people think, okay, it's going to take over our jobs, our our humanness in a way. And I think that this has always been the case with a new technology being introduced. Of course, now we live in a kind of science fiction situation that we could not have anticipated even like 5 years ago, I think. But that, yeah, I think it's very important to know ourselves, to know yourself, like it says, know thyself, because if you don't, something else will know you and take advantage of that. And I'm not saying that in a kind of apocalyptic way, but more like a kind of it's kind of a logic that you can discover, that it's good to know yourself in order to use technology wisely.
Yes, I totally understand that. And sometimes when you're using technology a lot, you feel quite alone. But theater is another way that you can actually be with other people and stay with others under the same roof to experience something all together at the same time. You've been working with Marcus for a long time. I'm curious about how you work with him this time, because you are going to create 4 different rooms on the stage. So how did you build up this? Do you have the script first and then tell him, like, we need 4 rooms, you build it? Or how do you come up with the stage design in the end?
Well, with Angela, so it's different with different projects. With Angela, there was the script first, but of course we talked about the kind of mental state of the whole thing, the inner state. So the question, so it was clear we're going to work with video, and the video was developed during the rehearsals. So we rehearsed the scenes, and then Marcus and also the other video designer, 𝗛𝗆𝗶𝗶𝗶𝗶𝗶𝗶, they followed with the video and tried to build around that inner state that was portrayed within the language and the movements. And we didn't know about we knew, okay, we need a kind of basic room where she's in, like a kitchen or living room or something like that. And they started to build from there. But now with 𝗛𝗆𝗶𝗶𝗶𝗶, for example, because it's such a huge opera with huge groups of people and we don't have so much time, Marcus is preparing the video, all the video, before we even start rehearsals. And he's using AI to develop them, and he's like practically building a whole film. And so it really depends on the work itself, and the circumstances, how we work on it. But this is how we usually work, like with Angela, that there's a script, and then we had another music theater, Einstein on the Beach, where it was actually Marcus who created a kind of landscape and where the audience could walk through. And that was different. I followed him there because there was also no text. So it was the landscape that kind of made the dramaturgy, I would say. But with Angela, it was the script.
This time, Angela, that we cover actually many different topics in the show. We talk about human consciousness, subconsciousness, and sometimes in the dreaming space that we have. And we also talk about how we interact with technologies and also the language control that we may have. And we also see the gap between pre-recordings and also the lip sync. How did you select the materials to put them into the piece?
You mean the text, or what do you mean with materials exactly?
Text indeed, and also the topics that you want to cover in Angela.
Yeah, it's I would say it's a very intuitive kind of work. The things come to you in a way. It's strange to talk about it like this, but so I knew it would be this kind of influencer. I had a few texts that I wanted to use, and then things started to accumulate around that. And it's strange because when writing a piece like this, maybe the basic setting. I knew that she was in her 4 rooms, that she hardly left them, that she was an influencer, and then things started to come to me in a way. So you become a kind of instrument where things, like also with like a dream, that you sit down and write, and sometimes things appear that you did not know were there before. And also with Angela, she kind of guided me through her life story, I would say, and things happened to her that I did not know before. So there's this strange scene where she's birthing a baby out of her mouth. I did not know that before. It is like a strange dream sequence. And I also didn't know how to solve it. When we started rehearsing, I thought, okay, I have this scene with this baby. How are we going to do this? But I mean, I'm not going to say too much for people so they can come and see how we solved it. It's quite interesting.
It's certainly something that I would like to figure out when I go into theater, especially thinking about how you have a baby coming from your mouth. That's something I would definitely want to see in person. In this process, we talk about Angela as a person, as a programs, as a people who is a woman in trouble. How would you suggest the audience to think about this person or this figure before they come into the theater? Should they come with any kind of preconceptions or any kind of hypothesis before they come in?
I would say not at all. I would say just come, sit there, and let it happen to you. It's very much what you make of it and how you perceive it, and people tell me things that they have experienced afterwards that I never could have thought of myself. You know, it's I think it's in the end very personal and very individual what people experience, and of course there's an overlap. I what I hope that people take away from it in a way is that this kind of set identity that we think we have, that we sometimes question it, that we question our own assumptions, question our own perception, just question things, I think is a good way to experience the world in general, not just this theater piece. I once had someone, a man, talk to me afterwards, and he didn't, I think it was Women in Trouble that he was referring to. I don't think he even liked the piece that much, but he said, I had such a strange feeling afterwards. I went outside the theater, I went to my car, I sat in my car, and everything felt so strange. And all the objects, like this car and me sitting in it, suddenly became very strange, just, you know, questionable. And I like this. I like this when there's a kind of perception shift, that you don't take things for granted, that you usually take for granted and don't even notice. You go to your car, you go inside it, you sit, you start the engine, and you do what you do, and you never once think about it. And sometimes to think about the most normal, mundane, profane things can be very, very exciting, I think.
Yeah, I think that indicates that you're successful, because like I don't think we expect everyone to like every work of ours, but if you can lead them with questions, then I think you're successful in offering them those questions, and then make them start to question every single thing they see, or they take it for granted. When you rehearse, I'm curious about, because like you mentioned, these actors are actually dancers. So when you rehearse, I'm curious about their reactions when they got the instruction for the first time that they need to lip sync on the pre-recording audio.
So people by now know that I'm doing this. This is a kind of well known. I'm known for this kind of technology, I would say. But in the beginning, I mean, there are actors also that do not want to work with me because of that. I mean, you have to find people who are okay for not having their own voice, and that's also why often dancers are more open to it, I would say, because they don't usually use their voice that much. And for actors, it's part of their identity to use their voice on stage. So it's very normal that there are certain people who, it doesn't make sense that we work together. And I've also asked people before, and they said, maybe this is not for me. But what happens in rehearsals is often that it's very funny that you start to incorporate this voice and find gestures for it. And we have to laugh a lot in the beginning, because it is a very comical effect also when you have a voice that's not yours and you try to walk and talk with it. So the rehearsals are often quite light and easy, I would even say. It's much easier than it used to be when I had to also really work on the voices themselves in that moment. It leaves us more possibilities to work, I would say, with the space, with the surroundings, that you can concentrate also on the light, on just the general atmosphere, and not just on the text of the actor, I would say. Because for me, that opened up a lot of more possibilities. But of course, for other directors, that's not a possibility.
Yeah, that's why I think that it makes sense to me for them to be dancers. Because like that was one of my original questions, that whether these actors will have anxiety when you taken away one of their tools, they have to be on stage without using the voices. So yeah, maybe I think that in some cases dancers will be more appropriate, because they are very used to not speaking out on stage in that way. You've been using technology in different ways in your works. Do you expect to use something new in the future? Are there any technologies that you are exploring for the future productions or something that interests you at the moment?
I don't think this is how I work, that I think of a specific technology and how I want to use it. I think Marcus does that more because his work is even more connected with the possibilities of new technologies. I just notice that I use them, and that they form my work. But it's not that I think, okay, now I'm going to use this technology. I just notice it, that, oh, it has crept in, you know. So whatever comes in handy, I will use. And yeah, at the same time, I'm also really interested in the very archaic, ritualistic roots of theater. You know, it's not that I'm only kind of looking to a kind of create a sci-fi theater. I'm very much interested in, where does theater come from? What are its origins? What is its inner power? Why do we go back to this medium over and over again, and have so for thousands of years? What is it in us humans that feel that this is still an important medium, because we have so many other things we could do? And I think there's something very basically human in watching other people's perform something in front of you. There's a very great power in that, and being in the here and now together. So I'm very much also trying to find out, where did it start? How did it start? Why is it such a strange, difficult, but also exciting medium? And what is it in us human beings? Because for me, this is a very strange setup, to be honest, to sit here and watch someone else pretending to be someone else a few meters away from me. What is this? This basic setup is very fascinating to me, and I always use the setup itself as a kind of question that hovers over the work itself. So the performance also looks at itself at the same time. I think there's always a kind of meta level where there is a thinking, a kind of feedback loop, a reflection going on that constantly asks this question: but who are we in this situation? Who am I if I walk out on stage and say something, or actually not say anything, but move my feet, my leg, and other people legs, and other people are watching me while I'm doing this? It's very fascinating.
It is very fascinating indeed, like see how people present themselves in different ways on stage, or trying to be someone else on stage. This is a great discussion. I think we also have collected several questions online that people have asked in the comment sessions. I would like to ask you as well. The first question is like this title is called Angela in the Strange Loop. They're curious that whether you are in a loop, in any kind of loops in your daily life now, because some people would try to break those loops intentionally. Because, for example, I have met a speaker who says that every time from point A to point B, he would try a different route to go to the destinations than to see something else. So the audience is curious about whether is there any loop in your life at the moment? Are you doing something intentionally to break it, the loop?
That's interesting. Yeah. And I think that's very smart to try and find new ways of reaching your destination. It kind of retrains your brain in a way. I'm very much a loop person. I mean, I really like my day to happen in the same way all the time. It's as if I don't have to think about it anymore. And then comes a time where I I notice, okay, now I have to break out in a way and try something new. Just do something that I don't usually do, like go somewhere and I went to the museum again a week ago, and I think especially here in Berlin, because I live in the city, so I never go to the museum because I'm not a tourist. So I never go, and I went again. I thought, why do I not do this much more often? It's so inspiring. I mean, this is just a small thing, but loops in general, I think you can also think it bigger in a sense that we also behave in loops that are, we run against the same wall over and over again until we have repeated the loop so many times that we now notice, okay, it is time for me to break the loop, but it's something very difficult because we are attached to our loops. Yeah, so and with Angela, I am a strange loop is also this question. So where is this I, this me, this this inner identity that we all are looking for, and it can't be found. It's like an onion that you peel and has so many layers, and there's no core that you can hold on to. So and we are made up of narratives that are being fed to us, that we feed ourselves, that we tell ourselves, and that's how we create an identity. But it's a kind of feedback loop between. So just thinking about the influences I watch, it has a feedback loop. It kind of starts to happen that I kind of start viewing myself in a way that I have not done before because I listen to this person a lot. And with Angela, it's also a question about her strange sickness, illness that she has, or chronic illness that she uses as content also. And the question, so what kind of feedback loop is that instigating? It's a very fascinating question, I think. And the more we can observe ourselves in this way, the better we start to know ourselves, I think.
Yes, indeed. I think that's certainly the case for many people here. We try to break our loops, but it's very difficult to step out of the loop that you're used to. The second question from the audience is that in this work, the visual design is very strong. It looks like we are in a video game. So they would like to know that who come up with these ideas? Is it do you have it in your minds when you write the script, or actually Marcus proposes, or how do you build up this video game style?
I think it's something that has evolved over the years. It's not something that you have like one idea and then you set about and put it into action. You actually work on it for years and years, and we have worked with this video game aesthetic for a long time. I also used the kind of video game dramaturgy in pieces before, so it's something that has been with us for a while now. And of course, the more you work on it, the more you perfect it. It's very cool because they built this video kitchen behind Angela, and there were people in the audience, maybe they didn't have their glasses on, who thought the kitchen was real. And I thought, how can that be? But of course, the technology by now is so good. You have good beamers, you have it's so crisp. So it becomes a question of reality, which I also find very fascinating.
The next question is, obviously we have triggered their interest and the curiosity about having a baby from the mouth. Can you elaborate on that? Is it from one of your dreams in the past, or how did it come to you?
I like to read comics, and I'm not sure where I saw an image of that in a comic that I read, and I'm very much wanted with Angela to explore this idea of a second birth. So the idea that you have to give birth to yourself again after you've been birthed by your mother, but the second birth is something else. It's something that you have to do yourself. It's a kind of inner transformation. You have to change. You have to become a new person at some point, especially, let's say, maybe the second half of life. There has to you've built up an identity. You kind of know, okay, this is me in the world, this is my work, and then you notice, okay, but is this really me? And with Angela, it's also this kind of identity she has built is no longer working, and there comes a kind of angel who visits her suddenly in her apartment and takes her with her in a way into the woods, where something happens that we don't exactly know. It is a kind of like in a fairy tale where she has to, die and resurrect again. And this baby is a kind of image of her birthing herself again. It's a kind of metaphor. But we needed a lot of rehearsals to try and make it in a way real, and we tried out a lot of things to create it. I'm trying not to tell too much so that people actually will have to see it for
no spoilers
themselves.
in that.
No.
I think this is a great time for us to close the session. Thank you for your time to be with us online. Unfortunately, you will not be able to come with us in September to Taiwan, but hopefully next time we'll be able to invite you to come to Taiwan and see our audience in person. I'm sure they will have a lot of questions with you and also give you a lot of feedbacks, maybe give you a lot of more inspiration for your future pieces. So once again, thank you. Thank you, Susanne.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, and enjoy it in September. I wish I could be there, but I can't. So I'm sad about that, but thank you.
Thank you. Just a reminder to all the audience here that Angela, A Strange Loop will be available on September's 11th and 12th and 13th. And the tickets are available now on OpenTix. So if you want to see how the baby comes out of her mouth in different ways or how they make it real on stage, please visit us in September for the Taipei Art Festivals 2025. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Good. Okay.